When we think about the word patriot, half of the country thinks about terms like colonizer, slave owner, oppressor, white supremacist. That that kind of thing is what comes along with the idea of patriot here in America. But on the other side, those who claim to be patriot suggest that what it means is embracing foundational principles that were established that were meant to develop liberty and justice for all people. The people who lived here in early America didn't bring bad behavior with them. They brought behavior that was global norms for humans. During that time period, this doesn't mean that it was just or you can just ignore it like it didn't happen. That's not the point of saying it was a global norm. It being a global norm means that it was going to take some time to change the patterns of humans. And that's what the foundational principles of this country were. Often people, when they get into conversations about America, especially when they use terms like colonizer, don't think about that by the time the Revolutionary War got here, half of the population here was born here. And when this became a functioning country and independent from Britain, I mean, you're talking about 1784. This is when those principles that were established were put into place. That meant that liberty and justice could start developing from that time forward. People are not looking back going, here's unjust things we should be proud of. And we're not trying to explain it away when we say global norms. It just means everybody was doing the same sorts of things, and that it had to start developing out of that somewhere. And it started with the principles that our founding fathers came up with. And then you're talking about 6 years at least of battle with Britain to become a country that could set those principles in motion. So what a patriot means is the foundation principles that seek to go toward liberty and justice for all people. And it's honoring those people who fought to make that possible. There's a thing called moral disarmament, which is happening here. And it happened in France as well, and I can't remember if it was World War I or II. But the goal of it, or the premise of it, is that talking through things is better than taking up arms. So one of the ways that they went about promoting that was to, it's kind of sneaky. I mean, it had a foundation that was good, but the way they went about doing it, especially with France, and the way it's being done here, is manipulative in nature. What they did was revise history, and they give you a context of that history that makes it something you can't really be proud of, or it doesn't make sense to fight for. It would make more sense to have some discussion about. And you also have symbolism or monuments taken out of the picture that at, say, one time maybe honored people who had fought to protect and preserve certain things about the country. So at its core, it's a group saying we shouldn't have such things as armed resistance. We should talk about these things. And again, I think most of us would prefer that. But when you have one side revising history to give a context that takes away from the value that the other side has, you're already slanting the story at that point. You're making it a no-win when all you get is that sort of history. And then when you do things like censor and take away monuments and take away parts of stories that showed you the real justification for certain actions, that dialogue is so slanted that the group asking to have discussion is going to be the one that has power to oppress in ways that have no limits to them. At some point, they'll have no limits to them. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because the Second Amendment is really under attack right now, but so is freedom of speech. And then beyond that, it's always been, or at least over the past several decades, it's been the founding of our country, parts about the Civil War, and even people's interest in what they want to have freedom of speech for, what they would like to have arms for. All that stuff's being argued against. So there's a split in what people think they know about the word patriot. And I think, well, you even think about our anthem, and then the fact that people are burning American flags, it seems like the left side over assumes that patriots want oppression, that they want to have division and inequality, that they want to be able to watch people have rough times and that kind of thing. So it's based on the revisionist story of how America came to be, for one. Then it's based on suggesting that patriots are trying to fight for something that's unjust and has an unjust foundation to it. If we don't all start having some context with our conversations, we're not even going to know what the other's speaking about. And the whole problem, and one of the reasons I keep talking about it, the first reason is to help patriots understand they do have justified reasons for being proud of their heritage. Global norms doesn't mean there wasn't, global norms that were unjust doesn't mean that there wasn't some just actions happening within that foundation, which there were. So that's one reason I'm talking about this. The other part is those people in the middle. I really care about how people in the middle see what patriot means, because I think there's a lot of us that what we would like to be and be part of is a just system. A lot of us. There's a portion that don't. There's a portion of elites. There's a portion of power-hungry people that want to be the center of attention and get whatever they want. I'm talking to the common people who are not into that. And there's always been a group like that within humanity, within this country, that think about context, search out some other reasons for why things happened when they did. And part of what I'm going to do is do a few videos on the founding of the country. Again, remember, it started functioning 1784 maybe. When people refer to American history, they're referring to that war first, the principles that that war was based on, that people were willing to give their life for. And then once those principles were put into place, 1784ish, that's what people are referring to their heritage. And then people throughout who have tried to protect and preserve those principles. But the disagreement and the conflict is coming over a misconception about what people are valuing. People aren't valuing the unjust global norms that were happening at different times in this country and everywhere else. People are valuing trying to find balance, trying to find liberty and justice for all people. So give that a thought, and I'll go a little deeper into this next video.